You know it's destroying you. This isn't new. This isn't a lack of awareness. You feel it every day. The relationship drains you, exhausts you, leaves you emptier every time. And still, you stay. You've rehearsed your exit more than once. You've promised yourself that was the last humiliation, the last forced forgiveness, the last tear swallowed with anger. But it wasn't. What keeps you here isn't love. It's not hope. And it's definitely not physical dependence. It's something far more subtle and much more brutal. What's keeping you stuck is your emotional bond with pain. And that, most people don't see. You're not attached to the person. You're attached to what that person represents inside of you. The story you built in your mind. The belief that if you just endure a little more, things might go back to how they were at the start, or how you dreamed they could be. But maybe that beginning never really existed. Maybe it was just an emotional trap disguised as connection, an intense display of affection, just enough to hook your mind before it started tearing it apart. You're not in love, you're conditioned, trained to seek relief in the same place that hurts you, trained to mistake imbalance for passion, absence for longing, rejection for challenge. And here's what cuts the deepest. You know it's not right, but still, you can't walk away, because it's not the other person that holds you. It's what this entire story triggers inside of you. You're not fighting for the relationship. You're fighting for a version of yourself that has felt unworthy for far too long, and now sees this chaos as a chance to prove it's finally enough to be loved. You turn the relationship into a courtroom, the pain into a sentence, and staying into a form of punishment. But let me say something you might not be ready to hear. You're not being strong for staying. You're bleeding for an illusion. And it's not because you're weak. It's because someone, somewhere in your life, taught you that love is supposed to hurt. That if you suffer enough, maybe, just maybe, you'll finally deserve love. What you feel isn't longing, it's withdrawal. What you lived through wasn't love. It was emotional conditioning built on unpredictability. And the more you try to rationalize it, the deeper you fall. You try to understand them, justify their behavior, search for answers, excuses, spiritual signs. If he came back, it means he still cares. If she cries, it means she still loves me. If he regrets it, it means it's real. No, constant pain was never proof of love. It was just emotional numbness winning again. The confusion became your normal, and the normal turned into your addiction. That's why leaving doesn't fix it. You've already left in your mind dozens of times, but you return. Not always physically, sometimes just in thought, in a song, in a notification, in a question that screams inside your chest. That's the most dangerous loop of all. When pain stops being a warning and becomes your comfort zone. Because here's the truth. This relationship was never just about the two of you. It was about a wounded child inside of you trying to finish a story that began long before they arrived. And until you see that clearly, you'll keep asking the same question. Why can't I let go? The damage didn't start with this relationship. Truth is, it began long before, back when you didn't even know what a relationship was, when you were still learning what love meant, by watching how the people who were supposed to protect you responded to your pain. You learned to love by observing, by watching how love was given, and more importantly, how it was taken away, as a prize, as punishment, as a silent threat. Maybe love came with silence, maybe with yelling, maybe with absence, or maybe it was just too much. Maybe you learned that to be loved, you had to behave, be useful, be quiet, be strong, be perfect, disappear. And when your first experience of love, as a child, is conditional, your mind writes a code that says, love hurts, but it's worth it. Love is unstable, but better than being alone. Love must be earned. Love demands sacrifice. Your body remembers the tension, that tightness before walking into an unpredictable room, the need to read everyone's mood before relaxing, that reflex to watch your words to avoid being rejected, that instinct to take the blame for everything that goes wrong. And eventually, that tension becomes your identity. On the outside, you're functioning. On the inside, You're still a wounded child trying to be good enough to not be left behind. You think you're looking for love. But really, you're trying to rewrite an old script, trying to finally do what you couldn't back then. Be loved without having to erase yourself. And then comes the toxic relationship, painted with the same colors as your trauma, repeating the same emotional choreography, the same highs and lows your childhood told you were normal. One day they listen, the next they vanish. One day they praise, the next they wound. One day they give you everything, the next they shame you for feeling too much. And you stay. You stay because your body recognizes the pattern. You stay because your mind confuses chaos with depth. You stay because being ignored triggers you, because being hurt challenges you, because being rejected makes you want to prove your worth. You're not in love with the person. You're addicted to the emotional roller coaster they created, because deep down, your brain believes that if you can earn love there, you'll finally be enough. But here's the brutal truth. If you have to bleed to feel accepted, it's not love. It's a wound on replay. It's old pain dressed up as connection. It's your inner child trying to heal the past, using the present as the battleground. And no matter how many times you try to change the other person, it's the code inside of you that has to change. Because as long as love still feels like pain, you'll keep settling for crumbs and calling it a feast. And the most dangerous part? You'll still think it's your fault. You walked away, but came back. You already decided it was over, but something always pulls you back. It's not because you're weak. It's because you were trained to believe that those tiny drops of affection were all you ever deserved. And when the reward shows up at random, out of nowhere, no warning, it sticks deeper than if it came consistently. Psychology has a name for this: intermittent reinforcement. That's what got you hooked. Not the affection itself, but the gap between one dose and the next. The confusion, the warmth followed by cold, the silence after the promise, the guilt after the compliment. This person could have been a partner, but it could also have been a parent, a boss, a friend. Someone who taught you early on that love always comes with a price, and that to receive the minimum, you had to endure the maximum. So you began to adjust, to stay quiet, to wait, for one more good moment, one more gesture, one more ounce of relief. The problem is, in the process, you changed your internal standard. At first you wanted dignity, then you just wanted respect, and now you'll take anything that makes you feel a little less rejected. And when that happens, you're no longer trying to fix a relationship. You're trying to repair a story, that inner script that says, if I just hold on a little longer, maybe they'll see my worth. If I don't walk away, maybe everything will change. If I try harder, maybe this time I'll be chosen. But you're not fighting for love. You're fighting for the validation you never got. And until you face that with brutal honesty, you'll keep calling hope what is really emotional addiction. You'll keep calling perseverance what is really self-abandonment. Because it's not their presence that traps you. It's what their absence triggers inside of you. And the more you get used to living in the wait, the harder it becomes to remember what peace even feels like. But there is a way out. And it begins the moment you realize it's not that they have too much power over you. It's that you're still expecting too much from someone who's always given you too little. You start to wonder if the problem is you. Not metaphorically, literally. You begin to doubt what you saw, what you heard, what you felt. Maybe I overreacted. Did I get it wrong? I think I'm losing it. That's the most common symptom of a mind being quietly dismantled. A mind that used to be sharp, stable, full of clarity, but now lives in a fog, manufactured confusion. This has a name: gaslighting. And if you've never heard the term, chances are you've already felt the effect. Gaslighting isn't just manipulation, it's a subtle hijack of your perception. It twists your reality until you no longer trust yourself. At first it's small. You call out something strange. They say, "You misunderstood." You recall a conversation. They reply, "That never happened." You express how you feel. They dismiss, "You're being dramatic." Tiny distortions, repeated over time, until your internal compass is shattered. Suddenly, you can't trust your own memory. You second-guess the things you know you experienced. You start to feel like you need permission to interpret your own pain. That's war, because now, you're no longer debating facts. You're begging for permission to feel sane, and the more uncertain you become, the more dependent you are, because a mind in constant doubt seeks shelter, and the one who broke you offers themselves as your savior. I'm the only one who puts up with you. You'd fall apart without me. No one else would stay. And you believe them, because they didn't win through logic. They won through confusion. But gaslighting rarely walks alone. It often shows up with another weapon, projection. They lie and accuse you of being dishonest. They ignore and say you're the one pulling away. They control and claim you're too demanding. It's a twisted mirror. They smear you with their own dirt, and you, disoriented by gaslighting, start believing it's your fault. So what do? You try to improve. You become extra careful, speak less, smile when you want to scream, swallow rage, and call it gratitude. You start walking on glass, trying to keep peace with someone who thrives on chaos. And piece by piece, your identity dissolves. You forget what you like, what you believe, who you were before the maze. This isn't just a toxic relationship. This is psychological reprogramming. Because emotional manipulation doesn't chain you, it convinces you there's nowhere else to go. And when that belief settles in, the mind fractures. You adapt to abuse, reshape your life around their moods, smile at someone who wounds you, call pain proof of love, accept scraps, and treat them like gold. But hear this clearly. That collapse inside you isn't weakness. It's the intended result of a deliberate system designed to keep you small, silent, and dependent. It's not just pain, it's the theft of your autonomy, a quiet erosion of your sense of self, until their version of truth becomes the only one that matters. But remember this, before confusion, there was clarity. Before manipulation, there was instinct. Before doubt, there was you. And that voice, it's still there. You don't need proof to validate your pain. You don't need permission to name what's hurting you. You don't need logic to walk away from what's destroying you. If someone makes you doubt more than feel safe, they're not loving you. They're erasing you. That's not love. It's control in disguise. It's domination dressed up as care. So what's the way out? It doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with a whisper. I'm not crazy. This is hurting me. Let that be the seed. And if you can't shout it yet, whisper it. But never again silence your truth just because someone labeled it too much. Your reality is yours, and no one, absolutely no one, has the right to rewrite it for you. You're not stuck on a person, you're stuck on the hope that they'll change. And that's what makes everything so hard. Because deep down, you're not just waiting for an apology, you're waiting for things to go back to how they were in the beginning. That beginning that felt like a dream, affection, attention, promises. That moment when you believed, this time, it's real. But that version never came back. Since then, you've been living off scraps, tiny good moments lost in a sea of bad ones. And even though you know that, you hold on. Because what you're really addicted to is the possibility that everything might return to how it once was. It's emotional withdrawal. Leaving a toxic relationship feels like quitting a drug. You miss the presence, but not the person. You crave the hope, the idea that things can still work, the rare acts of kindness that trick you into thinking there's still something real. But that's not love, it's addiction. You tell yourself, if I just love harder, if I just wait a little longer, if I just change, maybe they will too. But listen closely. You can't rescue someone who chooses to keep hurting you. You can give your best, forgive, try, stay, and still be torn apart. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to heal someone who hasn't chosen healing for themselves. And the cruelest part? Even after all that, your mind still romanticizes it. You forget the bad days. You hold on to the rare good ones, as if those fleeting highs are the real relationship, and the rest is just a phase. But it's not. The toxic cycle is the relationship. The sweet moments, just bait. You're caught in the what ifs. What if they change? What if they finally see my worth? But here's the truth. What you feel isn't longing. It's withdrawal. It's your brain begging for another hit of illusion. It's your heart clinging to fiction. Because it's afraid of facing what's real. Because beneath it all is the fear of being alone. You were taught to think that being alone means failure. That no one else will love you like they did. That maybe you don't deserve better. But let me be clear. Loneliness never broke you. What broke you was settling for crumbs in the name of love. You're not afraid of solitude. You're afraid of facing yourself after so long running. But in that meeting is where healing begins. You don't need another promise. You don't need another round of the same cycle. You need yourself, whole, clear, free. And that freedom starts the moment you say, it ends here. There comes a moment when not even pain is enough to make you leave. Because the problem is no longer the hurt. It's the attachment. It's the trauma. It's the invisible bond this relationship built inside you. A bond that now feels like part of who you are. But let me tell you something with all the care in the world. This is not who you are. This is just what you were conditioned to accept. And what is learned can be unlearned. Yes, it hurts, but it also brings clarity and a way out. You need to understand this. It's not just about leaving the relationship. It's about letting go of the version of yourself that learned to survive in it. And for that, there are 3 real steps. 3 moves any serious therapist, from Bessel van der Kolk to Janina Fisher, would point out. But today, I want you to hear this from someone who's lived it too. 1. Break the cycle, for real. You need a complete rupture. It's not just about blocking. It's about no longer feeding the fantasy. Stop checking their stories. Stop writing emotional fiction in your head about how it could be. Stop giving energy to the addiction loop. Yes, you'll go through withdrawal. It'll feel like something precious is gone. But what you're missing was never real. It was just a sweet illusion that chipped away at your soul. 2. Rewire your mind. Your brain was trained to normalize what once felt unbearable. But it can be retrained. Start small. Write down everything this relationship took from you. List the phrases you started to believe because of it. And repeat to yourself every day, this doesn't belong to me. This was planted in me. And I can choose something else now. Neuroscience calls it replacing dominant narratives. Faith calls it renewing the mind. Call it what you want. Just begin. 3. Rebuild your identity. You don't need anyone else to feel whole, but you do need to remember who you were before you settled for less. What made you laugh? What brought you peace? What made you feel still, without pain? That version of you still exists. It didn't die. It was just buried under a distorted version of love. And now, you're going to bring them back. Maybe right now you're thinking, what if I regret it? What if I never feel that again? But here's the truth. You don't miss them. You miss the dopamine hit you got from that unpredictable roller coaster of affection and rejection. You miss the relief, not the love. Because real love never asks you to erase yourself to stay connected. You deserve a story where you don't have to shrink to be accepted, where peace doesn't come wrapped in fear, where presence isn't laced with manipulation. And the most beautiful part? That story can still begin. But it only begins the day you stop dimming your light for someone else's comfort. The day you walk out, not in anger, but in clarity. Liberation doesn't come when they change. It comes when you stop waiting for them to change. You don't need another apology. You need courage. Courage to choose yourself, to stop begging for crumbs, to not go back just because it hurts. Because the pain of leaving, that fades. But the pain of abandoning yourself becomes a way of life. So now I ask you, are you really going to keep playing that role? Or will you take the first step back to the person you were before you forgot who that was? One click, one choice. Subscribe to Crackdown and prove you're done being controlled.